Hello and welcome to the Yes You Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Manning, and you're listening to episode number 48. So you got a promotion and now you're freaking out. Welcome to the episode. I wanted to do this episode at this time of year specifically because I'm seeing loads of celebration posts. I spend time hanging out on LinkedIn. I do quite a bit on LinkedIn, and there's loads of people celebrating and sharing their promotions at the moment. Now, obviously, these things happen throughout the year, but I think when the new financial year starts, there's promotion rounds and, everybody's announcing and getting excited about their promotions. And I realized that whilst I'm happy for people and I'm congratulating them, etc., I also know that what comes to me throughout the year is at least, now I'm kind of reflecting on it, at least I have at least one client at any one time. So a good number of clients a year who come to me because they've just got a promotion or they've just accepted a new role or they're just into a new role and they're struggling with it. So maybe they've just been given a promotion and at first they're all happy and excited, and then they're suddenly like, oh shit, now I actually have to do this thing. Now I actually have to go into this role. Now I actually have to step up, and there's going to be all kinds of mind drama that might come with that. And that is what I help people with. So at first you're all happy and excited, you got the promotion, yay you, it was what you wanted. And then you start getting nervous, and then the little doubts start creeping in. And I wanted to have a podcast episode that I could direct people to when they're in that situation, because it's a great thing when you have worked hard for something and you've put in the time and the energy and the effort and you've jumped through all the hoops and you got it. You were the one that was successful. That's a brilliant thing in terms of your career. And it can be a nerve-wracking time, a time which, as well as having celebrations and, champagne, is also a time where you start confronting the reality of the fact that you now have to step up and do this thing that you've applied for and that you've got. And I wanted to have a resource to direct people back to say, if this is happening to you, go and listen to episode number 48. So you've got a promotion and now you're freaking out. And the first thing that I really want to tell you, if this is you right now, is that this isn't just happening to you. So you heard me say at the beginning of the episode that I coach people on this every year. I have at least one client at any one time who's dealing with this particular issue. It is a normal thing and it happens for lots of people. Now, you may look around you and think, well, everybody else who's got a promotion is just feeling absolutely fine and dandy, and I'm the only one that's struggling or having, this drama and these difficulties on the inside. But I can categorically tell you that that is not true, because I support people with this stuff. I see inside people's heads for my job, and I know that it is a normal thing for people to experience doubt and fear and pressure around taking on something new, doing something new, stepping up, doing a new job, doing a new role, whether that's a promotion, whether it's a sideways move, whether it's in the same organization, whether it's in a new one, whether you're changing industry, right? The fears and the uncertainty that you can feel is perfectly normal and a standard part of having a human brain, and especially for those people who care about what they do and who really want to do a good job. Then those fears and those doubts can come up even more. And the second thing that when I was making my notes for this episode, I kind of reflected on is that very often the doubts and the fears and the thinking kind of drama which is coming up when you've got a promotion and then you're freaking out about it, it feels like it's something new. But really, it isn't. It's simply a new situation which is exposing what was already present. So the new situation, the fact that you've got a new role or that you're going into a new role, that you're already, in a new role, what it's doing is it's like shining a torch on some of the thinking patterns which were already there. These aren't generally new things, but we're shining a torch on some of the things that are already there that may, because you maybe have been in your current job or your last job for a little while, you've gotten more comfortable, you kind of know what you're doing, you know your way around the people, you know your way around the politics, you know how to kind of manage the situations and the skills needed in your old job. So generally, you're fairly confident, you're fairly comfortable. But here comes this new challenge, these new ways of working, these new politics, these new people, these new situations. And all of that can bring up stuff that was already there. And I want to kind of go through today and just kind of highlight for you some of those thinking patterns that might be in there, which might be making this period difficult for you. So you get a promotion and then you get all the mind drama that goes with it. And I'm going to take you through some of the things that I've seen with clients over and over again so that you can just think, is that what's happening for me? And maybe this isn't you right now, but maybe you're hiring people. Maybe you're bringing people in. And it's good to also be aware, like what might be happening for them so that you can look out for this stuff too. And I have I don't know, oh God, actually, there's bloody loads. That's like 7. Anyway, they overlap, but stick with me because it's not going to be longer than 30 minutes. And the first one, the thinking pattern that I see really consistently tripping people up when they've got a new role is I should know everything immediately. And I had a client who I coached a couple of years ago, and her take on her new job, even though she jumped 2 roles, right? So she hadn't just got the next role up, she'd got the role above that. Her unconscious thinking pattern, right? She wasn't really aware of this until we dug into it, but it was that she should know everything she needed to know in that job immediately on entering that job. And hello, completely unrealistic standard. You may kind of know what you need to know-ish to enable you to fulfill the essential criteria or whatever of a role. But the reality is that if you're stepping up or you're doing a sideways move, there is going to be stuff that you do not know. There is going to be new people, new situations, new challenges that you're going to have to get to grips with and that you're going to have to learn to manage. Now, you'd think that was just a standard part of doing a new job. Like some stuff you'll know and you'll pick up, and some stuff you won't know and you'll have to put in the work to pick that up. And it's almost like when you're expecting yourself to know 100% of everything immediately, and you're going to give yourself a really hard time if you're not, you're setting yourself up to fail. Because how could you possibly, in a new role, know absolutely everything perfectly 100% from day one? How could you possibly know that? It's really, really unrealistic. And yet, that is what loads of people actually think. That is what loads of people actually believe, even if it's a subconscious belief. So imagine you're going into a new role that you've never done before. And you think your unconscious belief is that I should know every single thing. I should be able to deal with every single thing. First off, just like I did in the old role that I had for 8 years. Would that seem like a realistic expectation? If somebody else was setting that expectation, imagine you were coming into a new role and people were like, oh no, you actually aren't allowed to ask any questions because we expect you to know everything 100% on day one. you'd be like, what the hell is this place? However, when you have this unconscious thinking pattern of I should get everything right straight away and I should know everything immediately, 100%, that's literally what you're expecting of yourself. And it's so unfair. And as you can imagine, if that is your expectation, how could you possibly meet it? You are going to be freaking out because it's an impossible standard. So if you have a promotion and then you're freaking out, just check in and be like, how much of this am I expecting myself to know? Am I expecting myself to know and do everything 100% first time from day one? And am I going to give myself a hard time if I don't know everything 100% on day one? Because there's no way you're going to. But if you have the standard that you should know everything on day one, and if you beat yourself up when you don't, cue the pressure and the drama. They're coming along for the ride. So check your expectation on yourself and say, if somebody else had this expectation of me, would I think it was reasonable? Would I have this expectation of anybody else? Would I expect that my friend who's going into a new role should know everything 100% on day one? And if the answer is no, then maybe just consider giving yourself a little bit of slack. The second kind of thinking pattern that I see happening in this situation is there's going to be situations which you haven't dealt with before or things which are unfamiliar. And what I see happening is the truth of the matter is somebody, and I'm thinking of a particular client when I talk about this client is perfectly capable of handling that situation based on their current knowledge and their expertise. However, because they hadn't actually dealt with that exact specific scenario before, they kind of forgot that all of their knowledge and expertise actually would lead them, even if they didn't know exactly what the quote unquote right answer was, their current knowledge and expertise was enough to make a good decision in that moment or in that circumstance. And when you're coming into a new role, there's always going to be stuff that you find to be unfamiliar. There's always going to be like a new challenge or a new situation. And when I see people having a lot of drama and difficulty, I see them forgetting that their expertise and their experience actually is enough, even if they haven't dealt with this particular scenario before. The reason that they've got the job is because their expertise and their experience is enough for them to do the job, for them to make that decision, for them to make that call. But they can kind of get trapped in this thinking pattern of, well, I've never seen that particular situation before, so I have no idea. And then I have to seek a lot of reassurance. I'm not sure. But what always is the case is when they're in a calm moment, they're like, well, I would just do this. And it's like, well, was that fine? Is that fine? They're like, well, probably yes. It's like, okay. So if this is you, think about the trust that you can have in your own skills and experience and the fact that you're bringing all of that, even when you've got a new situation or something which is really unfamiliar. The third thing that I see, the third thinking pattern around this is we can get hung up on what are people going to think about me? And this might sound like sort of worrying about, are other people going to judge me? Or what are other people going to think about the fact that I got this role? How are they going to perceive me? What kind of expectations are they going to have of me? And while we're like in our head thinking about all that, it's very exhausting, but it's also very difficult because our brain is going to go to like a bad case scenario. So let's say, and this happens all the time, I coach on this all the time. Let's say people have got an internal role, like they've got an internal promotion. When they're really worrying about it and they're having a lot of drama, the one thing I see is that they're thinking, people are going to judge me for getting this. They're going to think, what does she know? I wonder why she even got this role. Like there's a real focus there on what other people are thinking. And I guess the reality is, who knows? Maybe people are thinking that, but also maybe they're not. And when you're focused on other people thinking that stuff, of course, it creates more pressure and it creates more drama inside for you. Because suddenly you're not only trying to think about what you're doing, but you're also trying to think about, oh, am I looking okay in the eyes of these other people? Am I doing everything 100% perfectly? Because I really wouldn't want anybody to think that, my God, maybe she shouldn't be in this role, or maybe she shouldn't be here, on all of this. Now, the truth usually in this situation is something more like, because of all this drama and all this stuff that's going on in the inside, I'm not even sure that I should definitely be in this role. And I'm projecting that out onto other people and worrying about what they think, when the truth of the matter is it's closer to home. Because of the doubt and the worry and the increased pressure and thinking I should know everything and it should all be perfect, and every unfamiliar situation I should have a perfect answer for, and I don't, you're thinking something like, should I even be here? Can I even do this? Like, was I even the right person for this job? They're going to wish they hadn't hired me, like all of that. Now imagine trying to do a new job with all of that going through your head. Like, imagine you'd got a new job and the rest of your team were actually saying stuff like that to your face. Imagine if your boss was like, oh, yeah, maybe we really shouldn't have hired you to do this job. Maybe the team are like saying, God, who does she think she is? Like, what the hell? You would be, well, I mean, it would take somebody incredibly strong to be able to withstand that. And it would really dent your confidence. It would give you a lot of internal drama and stuff you had to work through. But if you're really focused on what other people are going to think about you and that they're going to judge you, you are literally working in an environment like that because you're already imagining that's what everyone's thinking. So it really can create a lot of pressure for you. So just stand back from that for a minute and say, is it them that are thinking that? Can you absolutely know that it's true that people are thinking that? Because possibly the only person you can actually know that's thinking that is you. The next thing is, there's often new challenges with new roles and becoming more senior. You may be in more situations where you're exposed to bigger numbers of people, to higher level, meetings, to higher level presentations, public speaking, that kind of thing kind of comes with the territory once you're moving up the ranks and you're getting into more of leadership positions. And for a lot of people, that kind of hits on nerves that already exist. Like, I know in this role, I'm going to have to start doing training, even though I really hate doing training, or it freaks me out. Or I know in this role, I'm going to have to report to a board every month. And the idea of that is like, oh my God. So it's not like you really wanted to do these things before, but with this step up or with this promotion, you're going to have to do more stuff, which is outside your comfort zone. And that's a difficult thing to navigate, right? Because you took the job because you were ready to kind of move and do something new and maybe come out of your comfort zone a little bit. But actually being faced with the reality of that can be hard. And I think it's a normal human thing not to want to expose yourself and then mess up in front of people, especially people who you perceive to be important, or, to which there's some sort of reputational element, like, oh my God, if I mess up in front of these people, what are they going to think? So really think about, like, what are the actual things that I'm going to be called to do in this job, which maybe maybe they are a push, maybe they are going to be outside your comfort zone until you get to grips with them, and maybe you get some support to deal with them, and then they just become a normal part of your job. At this point, you might want to try and remember, why on earth was it that you took this job or got this promotion in the first place? Because at this point, your brain's going to be like, here are all the reasons why this was a terrible idea. And you might have to be the one that brings you back round and says, hang on, I hear you. I know, I can see that you're a bit scared about the fact that we're going to have to present to that board, and the fact that there's going to be a Q&A at the end of that training, and maybe I'm going to find that really challenging, but here's the reasons why I wanted to do this thing in the first place. The next thing that I see people doing is focusing on a bit of the job that they don't know so well and completely forgetting about a large part that they do. So let's say I'm coaching somebody about, a couple of issues that they've got in a new job. They're trying to kind of make their way in a certain area. They're not sure. They're having some challenges or having some difficulties. I'll often ask them, okay, can we just, we're going to focus in on this issue, but can we just pull back for a minute and just look at the bigger picture? What percentage of the job are you actually doing okay, even though you're fairly new or you just started? And they'll say, well, I don't know, maybe it's like 50%, maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 70%, maybe it's even 80%. And it's like, maybe even 90. And I really think it's a good idea to kind of pull back and look at the big picture, because what our brains will automatically do is they will zone in, they will like laser focus in on the negatives or the difficult bits. And when your brain does that, you kind of lose touch with reality. And the reality is that you will be fulfilling some of the functions of your role absolutely fine already, even though it is new. Or if you haven't started yet, you'll be laser focused on all the bits that might be outside the comfort zone or you don't know. But the reality is you'll be ignoring the fact that a lot of it you will know and you will be able to do, or you will be able to pick up fairly easily. Now, this is a natural thing that our brains do. They like us to focus on stuff which is potentially risky or dangerous or whatever. And that's a good thing in the sense that it used to keep us alive. But in this case, it's going to have you more scared, more worried, more anxious, and kind of losing touch with the reality, which is that a lot of it you are going to be able to do just fine. The next thing that I see people doing, and I think we all do this to a greater or lesser extent, is we have these drama, we have these difficulties, but by God, we're not going to talk about it. Maybe our nearest and dearest are going to know, but nobody in that new situation is going to know. We're like, everybody has to think that I'm perfectly confident and I'm perfectly happy and I have control of all of these things. So we're like, they're faking it and wearing a mask and pretending that everything's fine while there's all this drama going on the inside. And it is exhausting to be wearing that kind of mask all the time whilst there is this stuff going on the inside. It is exhausting. And that word is the word that clients always use. How does it feel to be doing that? And they always say one word: exhausting. And we hear this wisdom, right? You fake it till you make it. But it's not something that I'm really an advocate of. You think about what you'd be doing if you were actually confident and you felt quite solid. You'll be faking it all and keeping it all inside. You'd be okay with the bits you're okay with, and you'd be saying, yeah, I really don't know about that. I'm going to have to get to grips with it. Instead of just keeping it all behind a mask. You'd say, yeah, that bit does worry me, actually. I'm going to spend some time doing X, Y, and Z to make sure I'm up to speed. When you're faking it, you can't do that. You can't reveal any of that because you've got to keep it all behind this mask of, oh, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's great, even though that is exhausting you on the inside. The next thing that I see is people worrying about not getting enough feedback. So they'll say, well, my boss isn't really saying that much at all. And so I'm not getting enough feedback. So I really don't know whether I'm doing a good job. And I need more feedback, and etc., etc. And sometimes, yes, feedback and the ability to chat through things with people, extremely useful. But not if it's being used as cover for your own lack of confidence in a certain area. So you can be doing absolutely fine and meeting the expectations that somebody has of a new employee in a role. But if nobody's telling you that you're doing okay, you can erroneously assume that you're not. But that's a mind trick, because you could just as easily assume that if nobody's saying anything, you're doing absolutely fine. I've had clients before that have started new jobs and have told me, the problem is I'm not getting enough feedback from my boss, so I don't know if I'm doing a good job. And where they've come to in the end is thinking, do you know what, if my boss really has something to tell me that's going wrong or that isn't great, they will tell me. And the rest of the time, I'm just going to have to assume I'm doing fine. Imagine how much more reassuring that is than constantly assuming that if nobody's saying anything, you're doing a terrible job. I mean, maybe you're getting a lot of reassurance or feedback from your boss, but you're probably not, especially if you're more senior. That kind of feedback just doesn't really exist. And if you're relying on it in order to boost your confidence and you're not getting it, then what? It's like a perfect shit storm. So don't forget, if you're assuming that a lack of feedback could mean that you're doing a bad job, just remember you can just as easily assume that a lack of feedback means you're doing a good job or a perfectly adequate job. And a note to the people who struggle with this is, people tell me this all the time, but to be honest, even if they did tell me I was doing a good job, I wouldn't believe it. I'd just think they were being nice, or they were trying to like butter me up or whatever. So notice that this isn't a problem with the amount of feedback that your boss is giving you. This is a problem with what you're making it mean. All right. So in summary, when you're starting a new job and you're having a freak out about it, you're probably doing some of the things that I just talked over in this exercise. You're probably managing yourself fairly badly. You're probably setting up some really unrealistic standards about what's possible, what you should know, what you should be able to do from day one. You're probably failing to kind of pan out and acknowledge what you are actually doing right and what you are actually doing okay. And the percentage of that based on the stuff that is new and is more difficult and that maybe, yeah, you're not up to 100% with yet. And recognize yourself for that. So if all of that is happening, it's no surprise that you're going to be freaking out, or even that you're just a bit nervous. Anybody who was thinking and believing what you're thinking and believing would be freaking out, or would at least feel quite nervous. Now, I think it's completely normal to feel a bit nervous and to feel a bit apprehensive when you're joining a new team and doing new things and putting yourself out of your comfort zone. But please don't make it worse for yourself by doing, even if it's inadvertently, the stuff that I've talked through in this episode today. Because imagine a new person was coming into your team and you were saying to them, by the way, you need to be 100% and know everything on day one and don't even think about asking any questions. And guess what? Everyone's judging you. And everyone's thinking, oh, what are you doing here? And if you get a foot wrong, everyone's going to think we shouldn't have hired you. What were we even thinking? Imagine how much you'd be freaking out if you came to work in that place. And you'd be thinking, actually, I don't really want to work for these people. They're awful. But if you're doing the stuff that I talked about in this episode today, you are working for one of those people. It just happens to be you. So where could you cut yourself some slack? Where could you go a little bit easier on yourself? Because it will actually improve your performance if you can do that. You can't use your executive functions properly if you are freaking yourself out. But you can when you reduce the pressure, when you cut yourself some slack, you're more likely to have a better time of what you need to learn, what you need to figure out, what you need to get on board with. And yeah, sometimes this stuff is easier said than done. So if you want my help, if you've got a promotion and now you're freaking out, or if you're already in a job and you're really struggling, then I will leave a link in the show notes. If you want to come and work with me one-on-one, you're absolutely invited. This is something that I deal with people with all the time. Also, there is a class on 29th of June 2023 called Grow Your Confidence in 2023. And that class will help you to look at the kind of the internal culture that you need in order to grow your confidence. And this could be whether you're in a new job or whether you're in an existing job. It will form a really good foundation for how you can do some of this stuff a little bit differently so you can have a bit less freak out and a bit less drama. Come and join us. I will leave a link in the show notes. But if you're listening to this episode after the 29th of June 2023, click on that link anyway for the class, because it will take you to my link tree and you can see what's happening in the SU coaching community right now. There might be a free class you can join. There might be other things that I'm doing that you might be interested in. So enjoy your week. If you got a promotion, then congratulations. And if somebody else you know has got a promotion, they're freaking out about it, send them this episode. Do them a favor. And I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.